Washington, D.C. According to the latest polls, Joe Biden enters the Democratic campaign for president as the clear frontrunner. But his staying power atop a very crowded field of diverse candidates raises many questions.
A short time ago, the former vice president appeared on The View, where he spoke about several things. We begin with honoring the memory of his son, Beau.
Is he why you're running?
No, he's not why I'm running, but I hope, as I've just... sounds stupid. When I get up in the morning, I think about, I hope he's proud of me. I hope he's proud. But look, it's about moving to the future. It's not about recreating what we did. It's about taking the same decency and the philosophy that we have, the political philosophy, and taking it into the future. There's so much we can do, my Lord.
Well, let me ask you this. You've also been criticized about your interactions with women.
Here's the deal. I have to be, and everybody has to be, much more aware of the private space of men and women.
They've also said, we'd like an apology.
Well, look, I'm really sorry if what I did in talking to them, trying to console, that in fact they took it a different way. And it's my responsibility to make sure that I bend over backwards to try to understand how not to do that.
Welcome to the View Apology Tour. You reached out to Anita Hill, and you personally expressed some regret to her about the way you behaved, I guess, back in 1991. When you were on the Senate committee.
I said privately what I've said publicly. I am sorry she was treated the way she was treated. I wish we could have figured out a better way to get this thing done. I did everything in my power to do what I thought was within the rules to be able to stop things.
All right, joining us now is Cheryl Gay Stolberg, the New York Times correspondent who spoke with Anita Hill. She had about her phone call with Joe Biden. Yamiche Alcindor is MSNBC political contributor and White House correspondent for PBS NewsHour. Welcome to both of you.
Cheryl, let's start with you. Joe Biden did apologize, and you actually spoke to Anita Hill, and she said that's not enough. Let's put it in a bigger sense. Anita Hill has said it's not enough for her. And a lot of people in the Democratic Party are saying maybe his sensibility isn't current and we need someone else. But if you take us to a general election, if you put Joe Biden against President Trump, Joe Biden has actually apologized. He has said, I wish I did something different. We need to be better going forward. The Republicans are eating this up, saying Democrats are going to kill him for it. This is a disaster. But pound for pound, President Trump versus Joe Biden in terms of morality and getting better, it's clear that Joe Biden has done a lot more and is trying to do more. Will that matter?
Well, I think you'll see Joe Biden emphasize what he has done, for instance, shepherding the Violence Against Women Act to passage. He created an organization, It's On Us, to deal with victims of sexual harassment and assault, to help them. That said, I think the Anita Hill issue is going to percolate, and as we have seen over the last day or so, it is resonating. It is something that's on women's minds. Women and many men are still angry at the way she was treated at the hands of an all-white, all-male Senate Judiciary Committee. And she was very clear with me that she would like there to be an apology to women who were not called to testify and to the public who she says expected a process of integrity. And she also would like to hear Biden say that he will take a leadership role on issues of gender violence and sexual harassment.
Did she have anything to say about the way Christine Blasey Ford was treated by Republicans when she testified?
She did. She actually drew a direct line between the 1991 hearings of Clarence Thomas and the 2018 hearings of now Justice Kavanaugh. She said she felt that Mr. Biden, who was then chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee and presiding over the hearings, set the stage in a way for the Kavanaugh hearings by failing to come up with a process, and that, you know, there is still no process in place for these kinds of things.
Yamiche, so according to Cheryl, what Anita Hill was talking about was not that, in her opinion, Joe Biden is irredeemable or can't say the right things or do the right things, but that so far that hasn't happened. And you see that he's going to get these questions over and over again. And it doesn't seem, you'd think he'd thought about this, but it doesn't seem that he's fully figured out what that answer looks like. Is there a way he can figure out an answer that's going to let him get past this and talk about his aspirations and what he wants to do with the country?
It's tough to say whether or not he can get past this. I think Joe Biden, for a segment of the population, including a critical segment of the population that looks like Anita Hill, which is a real big part of the Democratic Party's base, black women, are going to look at him and say, well, you had this chance to elevate women of color, this woman, to give her a real hearing where she could be heard and where women who were ready to back her could be heard, and you didn't do that. And Joe Biden has said, I apologize and regret the fact that I couldn't give her the hearing that she deserved. When in reality, he could have said more. He could have gone a little bit farther and said, you know what, I should have called the other women. Instead, he said, well, they expressed some feeling as though they might be not wanting to testify. And of course, Anita Hill told Cheryl in that great story that she wrote that she didn't see any evidence of that. So I think going forward, Joe Biden's definitely going to have to continue to reckon with this. I will say something: political campaigns are about personality and emotion, and this is something that Joe Biden has been able to tap into. First, you saw him on the View talking about his son. I think everybody in some way saw Joe Biden still reckoning with the idea that his son is not here anymore, and that was an emotional moment, showing himself as a father. I also think when you look at his announcement video and you look at the Charlottesville, and putting that front and center in his campaign was another way to tap into an emotion that the country's feeling, and telling people, I understand what you're feeling and I want to do something about this.
Joe Biden has apologized. Does the Democratic Party hold themselves to a higher standard than Republicans? President Trump has actually been accused of harassment by a number of women, and he's just flat out denied it. In some cases, he said they weren't good looking enough for him to possibly harass. And for the most part, his party has gotten in line behind him.
They have easily gotten past it.
So do Democrats hold themselves to a different standard?
Stephanie, that's the key question of this entire campaign. Is President Trump going to be able to go with a standard and have a standard that's completely different than what the Democrats are going to hold themselves to? You have in President Trump someone who has been accused by multiple women of sexual assault and sexual inappropriate behavior. You have the Access Hollywood tape out there, except the problem is for Democrats in this sense, and the Democrats that I talked to, those things have been litigated. The Access Hollywood tape and all the things that we knew about his interactions with women were things that we learned before the 2016 campaign, before the election, I should say. So the president in some ways has been able to navigate this, and his party, as you said, has backed him through all of this. Where on the Democratic side, people are going to be looking at Joe Biden and saying, does he really understand what he did? Does he really understand all the things that people felt when he touched them the wrong way? I think there's going to be this issue that even though President Trump might be accused of something worse in people's minds than Joe Biden might have a harder time getting through his primary because of things that people don't want to forgive, or things that people say, even if we can't really have a standard that looks like Donald Trump, we have to be better than Donald Trump. That's a key problem for Democrats in this race.
Isn't that amazing? Joe Biden will have a harder time getting through his primary. But if he makes it to the general, I don't know how Republicans could touch him for this, right? Kellyanne Conway,
that's a good point.
Conway had said, just Google, just Google it. I mean, this morning, Matt Schlapp said, I wouldn't let one of my 5 daughters have an office near him, except he lets his wife work for someone who has bragged about grabbing women by their
Cheryl,
genitals.
to that point, this is Joe Biden's problem in the primary. It may not be Joe Biden's problem in the election.
I think that's absolutely right. If Joe Biden wins the Democratic nomination, you will see Democrats get behind him, because the overriding interest among Democrats is to beat Donald Trump. Right. And many feel that Biden is in fact the best candidate to do that, despite this kind of baggage. And in fact, it was very difficult to get other Democrats to talk to us about Anita Hill, because they are concerned that they don't want to, or they didn't want to, undermine the candidate who could be in the best position to defeat Donald Trump, who they regard as extremely vulnerable on women's issues. And the answer to your question about do Democrats hold themselves to a higher standard, I think is yes. Look at Al Franken. You know, he was...
That would be the
You know,
evidence,
they
yes.
gave him the boot.
Yep.
As soon as those allegations emerged, his own, you know, colleagues in the Senate, female colleagues, turned on him, and he was done.